Welcome everybody to this Home Upgrade Hub briefing session. My name's David Kemp and I'm Associate Director at Turner & Townsend, and I'll be taking today's briefing. This looks at the diagnostic and support plan services offered by the Home Upgrade Hub itself. This session is one of a series on the Home Upgrade Grant Phase 2, or HUG 2 as it's known, and this briefing series covers a whole host of other topics related to the programme. So a more in-depth overview of the grant itself, some of the key deadlines associated with the funding programme, the challenge fund model, which is unique to this particular funding stream, and other programme related topics like that. All these briefings can be found on the Home Upgrade Hub website. Oh, why am I not going? There we go. So, moving on to the agenda. First off, we'll kick off with a brief overview of the HUG 2 programme. I'd like to introduce the self-assessment form before touching on the diagnostic and support plan tools themselves. There's an interesting concept called re-risking, which I'd like to highlight to yourselves before covering a little bit more about the application support that we can provide and wrapping up with a summary at the back end. So, in terms of HUG 2 itself, the aims of this particular funding programme are to address fuel poverty in private sector homes. Now, this isn't just any particular private sector home, it's homes that are primarily found in rural locations, but are not heated by mains gas. So properties can receive clean heating as well as energy efficient upgrades. The properties have to be in fuel poverty equally, with a total allocation of around about £700 million of funding for this particular funding stream. The challenge fund allocation model, again, it's something relatively unique to HUG 2. And rather than a straight competition funding programme where applicants are competing against each other for a finite pot of cash, the challenge fund model sees every compliant application that is submitted, as long as there is funding left in the pot, every compliant application will receive some funding, perhaps not everything that is requested, but there is significantly greater chance of securing cash via this challenge fund model. BEIS equally recognise that there is a lack of detail required for outline application stage. Not all applicants will have been able to undertake the detailed programme development work required to identify eligible properties, the exact number of households that are to be signed up, likewise the exact measures that will be required by those properties. So less estimation is needed at the outline application stage. And equally, the challenge fund model sees a slightly different way of funding local authorities. So capital funding is only drawn down by applicants when it is actually needed, so over the actual programme delivery. That means there's no risk of capital funding clawback for non-delivery. There are a couple of deadlines for outline application, but I'll touch on that in a second. In terms of eligibility, well, household eligibility at least, HUG 2 is targeting homes in EPC brackets of D to G, so those properties that are most energy inefficient. These homes equally have to be not heated by gas, so no gas central heating. Now, that doesn't mean a property has to be very distant from a gas main. No, a property could equally be connected to the gas grid, going to a gas cooker or something along those lines. As long as the central heating is not provided by mains gas, it's classified as off gas for this funding programme. Households equally have to be in fuel poverty. Now, there are two particular ways in which a household could be deemed to be fuel poor. So the household must have an annual income of less than £31,000, supported by numerous different types of evidence, which are outlined in the application guidance. Or the property has to be located in a particular geographical area, namely postcodes that are found within the indices of multiple deprivation 1 to 3 classification. These postcode areas have been published by BEIS on the gov.uk website. Private rented properties can equally be eligible to receive HUG 2 funding. But again, there are some specific eligibility criteria around that. So landlords of private rented properties are only able to own 4 properties in total, a maximum of 4 properties. So we're talking smaller private sector landlords. And there is further match contributions required from those private sector landlords. In terms of the outcome metrics, the things that need to be delivered by this particular programme, well, there needs to be an improvement in the energy performance of these dwellings. So if the starting energy performance of a property is F to G rated in terms of EPCs, there's an expectation that an EPC of D would be achieved. If the starting EPC of the property is D or E, the final state of play, as it were, for that particular property needs to be an EPC C. But EPCC is the target across the board. Likewise, in terms of targets, there is a 90 kilowatt hours per meter squared per annum space heating demand target. It's not a thou shalt, thou must deliver that. It's you're working towards, and you have to evidence and justify why you can't hit that particular target. Likewise, with all publicly funded retrofit programs, the installation program needs to be compliant with PAS 2035. So that means a fabric first approach needs to be explored. However, heat only or clean heat only programs are viable with the relevant and appropriate justifications. When we talk about cost caps for the program, there are some, as you would expect. However, these are slightly more intuitive, and they've been developed and designed to reflect challenges from previous funding programs. So the cost caps don't relate to a single figure for any kind of property. They do vary dependent on the property archetype and the property characteristics. So, for example, a mid-terrace cavity wall property has a lower cost cap than a solid wall detached property. Likewise, there are separate cost caps for fabric and for clean heat measures. So you can max out the fabric cost cap on that particular property archetype and wall type, and then likewise there's an additional allowance for clean heating to reflect the challenges associated with retrofitting some of these particular properties. When we're talking about the geographical spread, we're not referring to a more classic, this much money needs to go to the northwest, this much money needs to go to the southeast kind of geography. Here we are referring to a ring fence for rural local authorities and rural properties. So 60% of the overall funding stream base are ring fenced for rural local authorities. That does mean 40% of the funding is available for any particular local authority. So 100% of this 700 million could go to rural, but that's going to be quite challenging. A minimum of 60% is to be ring fenced for rural. Where we are exploring consortia applications that combine both rural and urban local authorities, it's not a case of applicants need to know which pot they are bidding for. BEIS sort all that out. It's one overall pot of cash, and BEIS, when they are assessing applications, will allocate accordingly. When we are talking about the deadlines for the particular program, the little table here on the right kind of explains it all. So the application process is now open. It launched on the 29th of September. There are two outline application windows, 18th of November and the 27th of January, which is the key dates, I suppose, for local authority applicants listening into this particular briefing. The Challenge Fund model, again, more about this on other briefings found on the Home Upgrade Hub website. That does release upfront payments known as mobilisation payments to help local authorities develop their programmes in more detail. They are available from April 2023. Delivery assurance checks to make sure that things are progressing as they should equally begin from April 2023. And batch submissions, that's this concept of capital drawdown, that takes place or are open. The process is open for batch submissions from 1st of April 2023 equally. If a local authority is looking to deliver the programme over 2 financial years, so 23-24, 24-25, the upfront payment for financial year 24-25 takes place in April 24, and overall the delivery window ends 31st of March 2025. So, looking at the actual self-assessment form itself, this is available on the Home Upgrade Hub website. As you can see there, that's the link. I urge you to go through and click on that and get into the self-assessment as soon as you can. Now, we need to stress this is not a test. It's not trying to catch anybody out. We appreciate, as do BEIS, that every local authority that completes the self-assessment form will not have answers to everything, and that's okay. The self-assessment is ultimately designed to be a quick way to help local authorities, consortium members, and equally consortium leads identify how prepared they are to apply for the Home Upgrade Grant Phase 2. Equally indicates where additional preparation support might be needed. The self-assessments also allow us, as the first step in the support process, to identify those projects that are eligible for in-depth one-to-one support, allocate our resources accordingly, and equally to develop support plans and support packages which meet the needs of the individual applicants. So now I will hopefully seamlessly jump to a live demo of the self-assessment form. So please bear with me while I share a different screen. So this, once you clicked on the self-assessment link through the Home Upgrade Hub website, brings you to this particular landing page. And as I said, this is not an exacting, in-depth, detailed survey or questionnaire. So let's continue. So the first few questions, I've already filled them in for speed. So first name, yep, that's me. Second name, you can see where this is going. This isn't overly difficult. Email address, telephone number, job title, and the kind of organization that you come from. As we can see here, local authority, combined authority, net zero hub, these are the only three kinds of organization that can actually apply for the home upgrade grant phase 2. But equally, we appreciate that other organizations might be employed by A, B, or C to help them to develop the application forms. And again, we need to know the kind of organization that you are, hence the next question. And again, trying to understand who the applicants are working with. And equally, if it's a local authority that's completing this, which local authority you are. This is quite an important one. What we see is sometimes when something's quite time bound, there's an exacting deadline that we need responses from potential applicants from relatively swiftly. A secondary contact is very, very useful. So Sarah, she won't mind being put down. She's one of my team. She's the workstream 2 lead for the Home Upgrade Hub. So if you've got a number 2, please put them in here. Equally, how did you find out about the service? Tick the relevant one. And here we get into the more detailed questions. And again, these aren't pre-populated, and I just want to run through them with you just to make you aware of the kind of questions that you will be asked. Well, actually, no, the questions that you will be asked. So in terms of your application, are you looking at an individual, a combined authority bid, a consortium? Equally, not sure is a valid response at this stage. Again, for our understanding, so that we may better provide resources in particular geographies, we need to know, how many support officers or support managers we need in a particular area of the country, which region is your organisation located in, and your application will be applicable to. Have you received senior level approval yet? This is a useful one, again, in understanding how mature your application is. If you've got board approval, brilliant. If not, there may be some additional things that we need to do or to support you to do to ensure that approval is secured. Do you have access to experienced application writers? Have you undertaken any kind of research into the stock data for properties within your local authority area? Again, as you'll see, we've got yeses, we've got nos, and we've got unsures. Unsure is a valid response in all of these cases. Likewise, if you've got data on fuel poverty and income. Equally, this is probably more of a challenging one. Do you have any information on the fuel sources that are used in the homes in your local authority areas? Again, perhaps for those more rural local authorities in the audience, as it were, that might be a little bit easier to answer. However, unsure, again, is a valid response as far as we're concerned. Have you already identified some properties to retrofit for using Hug 2? Some local authorities have, many others haven't, and again, quite a few won't know. Now, in terms of estimations of anticipated capital cost, this has been made significantly more straightforward by BAYS. At outline application stage, every property that's to receive works is assumed to require £18,000 worth of works per property. So if you believe you're going to be delivering works to 100 houses, that's £1.8 million, if my maths is correct, and hopefully it is. So, broadly speaking, this is how many homes do you think you could retrofit using Hug 2 funding times by 18,000. Again, some more stuff around, or questions around methods of energy efficiency, performance, and modelling. How are you going to go about understanding the impacts of what it is that you're proposing to do? And equally, how are you proposing or if you've got one already, what is your approach and strategy to procurement going to be? There are masterclasses on some of these topics in development and will be delivered shortly. I'm doing one on procurement myself later in the week. So again, please feel free to sign up to that. And going back to that outcome metric and eligibility kind of requirement, because this needs to be past 2035, do we have retrofit coordinators, retrofit assessors in place? Do you have service providers that can do that for you? And internally, have you got your delivery team in place? Have you even begun to consider who needs to be part of the process and the delivery team? And have you started to talk to your residents again about any of this? Do they know that this is coming? Equally, planning permission, is this something that's going to be required? These are often hurdles and challenges that local authorities will encounter further down the track if they haven't considered it at the front end. So again, no is a good answer. It's fine. It means that we need to start to look at how we upskill or provide resources to you to ensure that when it does come to delivery, planning isn't a particular problem. And finally, please, can we sign you up to our newsletter and information services? Please say yes. It's a handy way of being kept informed of other sessions, briefings like this one, or masterclasses on particular topics, or any other interesting news, updates from government, all related to Hug 2 funding. So that's that. Click submit. So after you've completed the self-assessment, within 2 working days, someone from the Home Upgrade Hub team will arrange a diagnostic call. So the call itself takes about an hour. It's again, it's nothing onerous in that respect. And the diagnostic takes the responses from the self-assessment and effectively goes into a little bit more detail. It digs down into some of your responses so that we may better develop this one-to-one support package for you. It indicates to yourselves, the areas that you've got boxed off in relation to your application. Equally, it indicates where additional preparation may be needed. So yeah, the self-assessment and the diagnostic, it does allow us to target our support most effectively for those organisations that need it ultimately. One of the things equally that we want to explore is whether or not a consortium might be something that your local authority needs to explore in a bit more detail. It might be that you've identified yourself that I want to be part of a consortium, I haven't got this, or this. Your responses might also suggest that might be required. So via that diagnostic call, we can again start that process of understanding just how required a consortia or a collaborative application might be, and we can start that process of exploring who your potential consortium partners might be, what's the best fit for your particular organisation. So the call itself, as mentioned, it takes about an hour and it goes into more detail on those self-assessment questions. So one of the support managers from the hub, from Turner and Townsend, will work through those 13 topic areas and complete a RAG rating, dependent on how ready your local authority is for the Hug 2 application. So the topic areas covers those included within the self-assessment form. So data held on private sector homes, your retrofit intervention and expertise. Have you done this sort of stuff before? Delivery planning, procurement, and all of those things that will be imperative for a successful outline application and, more importantly, successful delivery of a Hug 2 program. So we've had the self-assessment, we've had the diagnostic call. After that, you receive the support plan. So the support plan is tailored to the local authority following that diagnostic. So it includes the actions that we feel that you would need to implement to prepare for a Hug 2 application. And equally, it details the support that the Home Upgrade Hub, delivered by Turner and Townsend, is able to provide you. We'd suggest that you get into this process as soon as possible, regardless of whether or not you're intending to apply for the November or January application window. The sooner you are in our process, as it were, the sooner we can start to develop your support plan and look forward to working with you on improving and making as successful as it can be your outline application. Now, I think it's worth highlighting the support for consortia. So you may be a local authority and you may well already acknowledge that I need to work with a a consortia lead for this particular application stream, so I don't need to do the self-assessment. We would challenge that. Even if you're looking to join a consortium, we can still offer you individual support for your local authority so that you may in turn support your consortium lead. So having that one-to-one support call, that diagnostic, that support plan, it effectively strengthens the overall consortium bid. So as well as supporting that consortium lead, we can support its constituent parts as well. So if you think about it, we can't provide, I suppose, the ultimate service to the consortium lead, that in-depth analysis of where the weaknesses lie within the consortium application, unless we have engaged with consortium members. So ultimately, whether you're an applicant in your own right, a member of a consortium or a consortium lead, engaging with the Home Upgrade Hub and accessing our support is, I think it's fair to say, imperative. Some of the most successful support sessions that we've delivered have been with consortia, roundtable group support sessions that they tease out some of the common challenges that individual consortium members are facing. It does develop and generate that in-depth understanding amongst consortium members, so that our support managers can deliver that highest level of assistance to your consortia lead and your application overall. We want you to be successful, whether you're individually applying for this cash or whether you're applying as part of a group. So, re-risking. Now, this is a little bit of a different concept. This is aimed at those local authorities that know that they're going to apply in January 2023. They've recognised that that's the window for them, but they've engaged early with the hub, the Home Upgrade Hub, which is what we want you to do. So you've received your support plan and your associated action plan that comes with that, and you would be expected to make some progress in the areas that the support plan suggested. That could be, procurement, going out and developing your procurement strategy, for example, exploring how your consortium might need to be managed, data analysis, those sorts of things. And again, there are masterclasses and additional one-to-one support available for these particular topic areas to organisations that have engaged with the hub. So that re-risk call is effectively, it's a second diagnostic, if you will. It's where we go away and revisit that initial diagnostic to see where you've progressed, how far you've progressed, and in some cases where you might need to progress a little bit further still. So we will re-profile your risk and we can refine that support plan for you based on that review. After the re-risking process, you're expected to begin that outline application development. So further application support that's open to yourselves is the critical friend review. So you've written your application, don't hit submit just yet. The critical friend review is something that we can provide. It's effectively an impartial sense check of your application with a view to hopefully improve the quality of that application and make sure that you're you've got a higher chance of success at outline application stage as possible. Things that you might have missed, things within your application that might not hit necessarily the application form guidance, things that could be strengthened a little bit further. We're currently doing this on other funding programs. It's a very useful and effective service that's being offered. So again, in summary, it is what it is. That's the support process related to the diagnostic and support plan. You undertake the self-assessment, you have the diagnostic call, the support plan is delivered. We re-risk your application or your support plan were relevant, and at the back end of it is the critical friend review. However, there is one little thing that's missing on that, and that's hit submit. We've done all this process. This is the aim of the game at the end of the day. It's to get you to submit a successful outline application. So let's go all through this, press submit, and then wait for the good news from BEIS. And that is that. If you have any particular questions, by all means email info@homeupgradehub.org.uk and one of the team will respond to that particular inquiry. Equally, we've got Home Upgrade Hub's website, homeupgradehub.org.uk, where you can find this briefing, as well as the other briefings on the HUG2 program, as well as the masterclass resources. There'll be toolkits that are being developed. There's a whole body of resource available to applicants for HUG2 on that particular website. So I'd implore you to go away and check out the website, and obviously sign up for newsletters and bulletins and things of that nature as well. So thank you very much for listening. And that's me.
Brilliant.